Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the blog of me, Alan Shisco. I'm a motion graphics artist. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about workflow. I just had a project recently where I had to do an entire graphics package for the Toronto Blue Jays, which are a Major League Baseball team here in town. And the really tricky thing about this kind of a project is the workflow. I had to do I had to do intros for every one of the players, plus I had to create boards that they could use in their Chiron system. I had to make backgrounds, I had to make lower thirds, I had to do all these things. And what that adds up to is a whole lot of elements. This particular project, I had 43 different intros that I had to do, one for each of the players that are starting the season. And it ends up being quite a logistical challenge just to keep it all straight and make sure that all the names get on the right pictures and that everybody gets done and rendered out properly. And so that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to look at the logistics involved in going through putting a whole team into a whole bunch of graphics. So let's start off in Photoshop. First thing that I got when I started doing the project was a whole bunch of player pictures. So I'm just going to grab onto one of these pictures here. Where are we here? Original, and we'll start off with this one. I'm just going to drag it over and drop it in here. So I got a disk that had 43 pictures of all the players on it. Now, first thing that I have to do is I have to separate them from their backgrounds because the look that I'm going to be doing requires them to be cut out. Now, normally what I would do if I were taking these pictures is I would shoot the players against a green screen, and then in After Effects I would key it out. However, in this case, I was not able to be there, and the photographer thought it would be a good idea to shoot against a gray screen, which makes it extremely difficult to key out in After Effects. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do all the work in Photoshop first, and then I'm going to bring it over to After Effects. So the first thing that I did is I had to resize the image because this is obviously way bigger than I'm going to need in After Effects. This is a standard definition project. So what I did is I created an action. Now, if you have never used actions in Photoshop, hit the F1 key. It'll bring up Photoshop Help and type in actions. It'll describe how it works. Basically what it is it's a script that allows me to do a whole series of steps, and then it'll do it all automatically. Now, in the case of the first one, it's a really simple one. It's all I'm going to be doing is resizing the image. And in this case, what I do is I go to File, Automate, Batch, and that brings up this batch dialog here. I choose the action that I want to execute, which in this case is resize to 600px, which is pixels. And I do all the options here about where I want it to open, where I want it to save, overriding save as commands, etc., etc. You can find all this stuff in the Photoshop help if you're looking into actions. So I hit OK, and I did that, and it went through and it resized everything to this size. So that's a little bit more of a usable size for me because of I don't need all that extra resolution. It's just in After Effects. It'll just mean that I'm going to be doing way more processing on something that I don't need to get processed. So I'm just making the size only as big as I need to do. So assuming that I've gone through that, and I automated the process by doing File, Automate, Batch, all the images are now the proper size that I want them to be, which is, say, 600 pixels high, 480 wide. So what I do is, at this point, is I grab all the pictures that I resized and I drag them and drop them into Photoshop. And let's just pretend that's what I did with this one image here. This is the last image of 43 that I'm working on. And this is how I get rid of the background. I'm going to use the Magic Wand tool for this one. The background here is, although it's not green for keying, it is very uniform, which is good. And you can see that there's enough differentiation between the background and the players all over here that I will be able to use the Magic Wand for a satisfactory selection. So all I do is I start down here and I click. Now what I want to do to make sure that I've got everything selected, because when you do a selection in Photoshop, those little marching ants there shows you a 50% differentiation between what is selected and what isn't. So this does not necessarily guarantee that that's exactly what I'm going to be selecting. So what I do is I hold down the Shift key, and you can see that there's a little plus beside my cursor now, and I just go right around the player, click, 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 like this. And that makes sure that I get the selection right up to the edge, and I'm not going to be left with any little bits that are there. Now, let's move over to the actions again here, because I've got this other action that I set up, which is called Finish Jays Picks. I actually spelled it wrong. There you go. That happens. What it does, first it's going to invert the selection. Then it's going to contract the selection by 1 pixel. That'll get rid of any white or black lines that might be there. It's going to make it smaller. And then I'm going to feather it by 1 pixel. Then I'm going to make a new layer via the copy. Then I'm going to delete the background. And I've assigned this a function key, because the great thing is once I do my selection with my magic wand here, all I have to do is hit the F3. You can see it went through all of those steps now, and I'm left with the player picture all cut out, looking good, and ready to go. At this point, all I have to do is save it, close it, and I'm ready for action in After Effects. So that's the Photoshop side of things. Make sure that you figure out actions, because when you've got a lot of work, a lot of repetitive work that you have to do in a whole bunch of images, if you set up your action properly, then you can do almost no work at all. Doing all of these was took a lot of time because there were so many, but it was made much, much, much easier by having the actions going on there. So that's Photoshop. Over into After Effects. Now, the project here is already done. I'm not really going to go through how I designed the project. You can see right here that there are a whole bunch of layers involved. It's got a background up here, the little T's. It's got some boxes and some J's and the logo. Those I rendered in 3D Studio Max and brought them in as image sequences right here. I put in a couple of flares, and I put in some names and some flashes and that kind of stuff. And I have a camera. So what we do here is, the first thing that I want to do is I want to import the image that I used. So I'm just going to double click here. I'm going to go over to baseball, and I'm going to, well, actually in this case I went into my sources here. I'm going to go into my Pics Small folder, and I'm going to open the picture of the guy that I did here. Hit OK. Choose Merge Layers and hit OK. Here's the image right here, and you can see there is the guy all cut out. I'm going to hold down the Alt key and click on there, and you can see that's the alpha channel. So he's ready to go. So the easier way to import stuff, instead of going over here and double clicking to import, or if you go up to File, Import, Import Files, all that kind of stuff, is just have your window open where you've got all the files that you want to bring in. All you got to do is Shift, hold down the Shift key, click, select all the files that you want, drag them over to your project window and drop them in. Now I'm just going to do this on a couple of pictures so that you can see what we got here. These are a few more that I did. I'm going to drag it over, drop in, and immediately ask me what do I want to do with them, merge layers or choose layers. They're going to be merged layers for all these. So now all I have to do is sit here and go OK, 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 and they'll all be brought in. So that's a nice quick way to bring images. And you can do that with any footage files for After Effects. Anything that you want to bring in, just click it from your window, drag it over, and drop it in, and After Effects will import it that way. Real quick way to bring stuff in. All right, so first thing that I do when I get this image here is I'm going to click it, drag down here to this little button here. It's the third one over for the left at the bottom of your project window, and that's going to create a new comp. Now there's a reason why I want to do that. I'm going to hit K here, and I'm going to ask it to create this size NTSC D1. That's what I'm working on right there. So it's going to create it that size. Now there is a reason why I did that. I'll explain that a little bit later. So what I do is I got to bring in every one of those pictures, and I got to bring them over and create a separate comp for every one of them. Now that takes a little bit of time. Yeah, it's got to be done. So then what I do is, in my main project here, is I have that pre-comp that I created called Accardo, and I'm just going to actually delete these because these are temporary ones that I was doing to show you. I'll open up the final comps here, and here I have cards. Okay, every one of these has the image of the player that I was working on, and I've got them one for each of the players. Now, if we go over to the intro here, you can see that here is that card comp that I used, card Accardo 2. So all I got to do here is I have to design the intro, design it once, get it all approved and everything from the clients. Then at this point, what I do is I go to my intros here. Let's see, blog, I'll open it up. Here's the one that I was doing, intro Accardo. I just got to duplicate it and duplicate it again and again and again and again, and I do that 43 times. Then when I open them up, here's a little time saver. If you want to open up a whole bunch of comps, again, shift click, double click, and it'll open them all up in your timelines, just like that. So at this point, what I can do is, if I go to my card comps, okay, here's the cards for each of the players. All I have to do is go to the next one here. I'll just close that. Select the card comp, and here is one of the most important workflow shortcuts that you're going to be using in situations like this. If you want to replace something In this case, it's got some keyframes and the likes, and I want to have every one of the other cards and every one of the other comps look exactly like this one. So let's actually go here so we can see what we're doing here. All you got to do is select the other layer that you want to replace it. Make sure that the comp that you want to replace the layer, that it's selected. Okay, I don't want this one selected. I want the one that I'm going to replace selected. Go up to your project window. Hold down the Alt key in the case of the Mac, or the PC, or the Option key in case of the Mac. You'll bring it anywhere into your composition here, anywhere in the middle. You can see there's a little plus right beside the cursor. And when you let go of your mouse, you're going to replace the one layer with the other, and it's going to maintain all of the changes that you had on that layer. So this is really, really fast, because now all I got to do is go through, select, drag and drop, select, drag and drop, and I got to do that 43 times. So if you do that quickly, there we go, move that over. I'm quickly replacing all of the people with the appropriate card names. Now, the other thing that you got to do while you're doing this, this is where you got to stop and slow down and make sure that you're doing everything in the proper order, because what I want to do is I want to make sure that the name of the card that I use is the same as the name of the comp and is the same as the name on the actual the image that I use right up here. Okay, so the next one that I did was right here. I believe this is Adams. So when you're going through, you want to drag and drop, and then you want to change the names. Russ Adams in this case. And then you also want to change the name of the comp. Okay, it's important that you do all these things one after the other, and you sort of get into a groove with it, because if you were to end up in a situation where you put the wrong card in or you named the comp wrong, everything's going to filter down, and you're going to end up with the wrong person with the wrong name named the wrong way, if that makes sense. So it's mostly just a case of paying attention, make sure that you get all your ducks in a row and you do everything in the proper way, but then it'll be fine. You'll get everything all lined up as it should be. So you do that 43 times or 100 times or however many times you got to do it, and you end up with this many, in this case, intro compositions. And they've all got the names, and we've also got the cards that are all the same. Now, I'm not going to get into the lower thirds and stuff. I've got a whole bunch of lower thirds, some that were one line, two line, clean, and the likes, but we'll leave that alone for now. There are also some backgrounds and some different boards and some transitions and the likes that they wanted, but we're dealing with the intros right now. So then the next thing that you do when you're ready to go is you go to your composition, and you, in this case, I'm going to hold down the Control key, and I'm going to hit the letter M, which means Make Movie. Once I do that, it opens up the render queue, and there's a couple of time-saving things that you can do in this case when you're ready to get everything all rendered up. The first is make sure that you've got the appropriate output module selected, the default to the appropriate output module, I should say. In this case, I do not want to render to lossless with alpha. I don't need to have an alpha channel on these intros. So now watch closely what I'm going to do here, because this is a little bit kludgy to figure out. I'm going to open up the output module thing. I'm going to go down here to, oh, you can't really see it, Make Template, which is the very bottom one. Let me just see if I can. No, you won't be able to see that. At the very bottom it says Make Template anyway. It'll open up this here. It defaults to something called Untitled 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. You want to delete that. The important thing is right up here, the movie default. What I'm going to do here, because I don't want it to default to lossless with alpha, is I'm going to open that up and choose one of the other sequences that I have. In this case, I'm going to do PJPEG94/audio. And this is a, let me open it up here, PJPEG94 audio, QuickTime movie, format options, photo JPEG, quality of 94, and I also want to include, I want to embed the audio in like that. So I'm going to choose that for the movie default and hit OK. Now That's going to be best settings. That's fine. And I also want to choose where it's going to be rendered to. In this case, I'll put it into the blog renders folder. Now, the reason that I did this for the first one is that once I do that once, all of the other ones are going to take on the same settings up here for the render settings, the output module, and it's going to go to the same folder. Okay. So if I go to the next one here, Intro Atoms, and I do Control M, you can see that it's defaulting to PJPEG94 audio and Intro Atoms, and that's going to be going to the same folder that the other one was going to. So one other thing that I should mention is that when you change the template like that, if you change the template up here, when you hit OK, it actually doesn't replace it with the new default template that you've indicated. It keeps it as the template that was there before. So after you change the template, the next thing you want to do is you want to go down and change it to the default again. That's just a little bit of a gotcha. It might, it might get you. So once you've got all that done, adding everything else to the render queue is really, really simple. You don't have to go to each of them and do Control M or Composition, Make Movie, or any of that kind of stuff. All you do is you go over to your project window here, and you select all the ones that haven't been put into the render queue. In this case, it's from here all the way down to here, and you go up to Composition, Add to Render Queue, and you can see that there's a keyboard shortcut for that. And now when you do that, I'm going to maximize the render queue here, and you see, presto, all of your intros are all nicely lined up and ready to go. So at this point, all you got to do is save your project first, of course, and hit the render button. Then they're all gonna go. And you'll notice when we do this, saving. I hit the save button, and that's one of the things that because it has so many elements here, it's a huge project. It's like 30 megs in size. So you can see that it's defaulted to PJPEG94 audio, and if we click there, they're all going to the same folder, so it'll all be nicely organized. So that's for that. Now the other thing that I wanted to save off was all of the cards. Now you'll remember that I did all these cards here. Let's just make this a little bit smaller so we can see it. There we go. It's got alpha. Now the reason that I want to save these off is I want to save them as stills, so that when my clients are putting together the boards, they're going to put these images over some backgrounds and over some stat boards and stuff I had designed. So they need these to be saved off as stills as well. Now, what I'm going to do to save these cards is I'd like to do the same kind of thing I did for the intros, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to. If I were to, well, let's actually do in here. I'm going to select the card here, and I'm going to go Composition, Save Frame As, File. When I do that, if I look at the best settings here, into the best settings, it's saying that it's setting the duration automatically because I chose Save Frame As. The duration is 1 second, or 1 frame, pardon me. But when you go to edit, to make a template, if you wanted to make one, let's edit this, you have no option here to check that says only save 1 frame. So the trouble is you can't actually make the same template for it to use, and I can't drag them all of the cards and add them to the render queue here because it won't work. So the workaround to that is a little bit kludgy. What you got to do is select all of your layers. I'm just doing a couple of them here. Double click to open them all up. And what I do is I do the save shortcut, the shortcut for Save Frame As, and you can see that it's Control Alt S. So all I got to do here is select it, Control Alt S, it'll add it to the render queue, close it. Next one, Control Alt S, adds it to the render queue, close it. Control Alt S, adds it to the render queue, etc., etc. So not quite as efficient as going the other way, but eventually it'll get the job done pretty quick. And once you get them all lined up, all you got to do is hit the render button. So I hope that that little walkthrough helped you in the course of your work. Maybe it'll give you a couple ideas on how you can alter your workflow to get things done a little bit more efficiently and therefore a little faster. And my name again is Alan Shishko. My website is www.effector.ca, and hope that everybody has a great day. Thanks.